Guadalcanal had become a key square on the board when the Japanese landed there in May 1942. In itself, the almost uninhabited jungle island didn't have much value, but its location northeast of Australia made it useful. With an airbase, the Japanese could use it to cut the supply line between the US and Australia and allow the Empire to deploy bombers over Australia's east coast. So, when Japanese ships began unloading engineers and cutting down trees, the Allies were quick to investigate. On 3rd of July, an Australian spy confirmed that the Japanese were building an airbase on the island. In Washington, President Roosevelt and his military staff met with other Allied representatives. Their decision was clear. Guadalcanal had to be taken. The operation was given the code name Watchtower. Its instigators hoped that a successful mission at Guadalcanal might also help them neutralize or retake the big Japanese base in Rabaul on the island of New Britain. The US was still riding a wave of optimism after its fleet had thwarted the enemy's large-scale attack against Midway in early June. And although the Americans had not yet completed a wartime amphibious operation, everyone was ready. Major General Alexander Vandergrift was appointed command of the 23 transport ships and 19,000 Marines allocated to the mission. Just after 0900 hours, the first landing craft hit the island's shelving sands. The ramps were dropped, and the Marines splashed through the shallows and onto the beach, spontaneously firing at the unseen Japanese batteries and bunkers. But after a moment, the Americans realized that there was no return fire. Beach Red, as the landing point had been named, was deserted. Humidity made it difficult to breathe. Colonel Hunt, who landed on the beach at 0950, was delighted at the lack of resistance. Not one of his soldiers had lost his life, and minute by minute, more forces were pouring onto Guadalcanal. The men dragged up artillery guns and boxes of ammunition, and soon light tanks rumbled along the shore, spraying up water. Men who had thought they were going to stab their freshly sharpened bayonets into their enemies' skulls now used them to skewer coconuts to get at the cool milk instead. But amid the idyll, concerns also arose. Where was the enemy? We stared at a wall of jungle just beyond the beach and wondered what it contained. Lieutenant William H. White, then 24 years old, later wrote in his memoirs. White soon had the opportunity to find out when he became part of the force that had to work its way through the dense vegetation to launch an assault on the airbase 10 kilometers away. The soldiers were constantly on their guard as they chopped their way forward with machetes. The foliage from the tall trees stole the light, and the air on the ground was so humid that White and his companions had difficulty breathing. The jungle was filled with unfamiliar noises, and the soldiers were terrified of poisonous snakes, which they knew slithered around the undergrowth. Meter-high kuna grass reduced visibility to almost zero, and the lack of any map meant the Americans had to rely on compasses alone to steer them towards their target. They constantly came across steep gullies that delayed their advance, and it wasn't until the following morning that the troops reached the airfield. No Japanese had attacked them, and the facility appeared abandoned. The barracks lay empty, but the stores were full, with bags of rice, tinned salmon, beer, and sake. What struck White most, however, was the huge number of porn magazines. After 24 hours, the invasion of Guadalcanal had succeeded beyond all expectations. Only one soldier was seriously injured, because his machete had slipped while he was trying to open a coconut. The men slapped each other on the back, unaware that their stay on the island was about to develop into 6 months of grueling fighting. Fleet was rocked by nighttime explosions. The reason the Japanese initially chose to stay out of sight was because of their modest numbers. The 500 combat troops stationed on the island had watched uneasily as the Allies approached on the morning of 7th of August. The bombardment and sight of hundreds of landing craft prompted the soldiers, engineers, and workers to retreat